Welcome to Sleepy Tales. My name is Mateus, and before we begin today's story, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below saying, "I'll sleep well tonight." Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into tonight's tale. Pedro had always been a bit of a loner. He was a successful young man with a promising career in finance, but he felt like something was missing in his life. He had a few friends, but he never felt like he belonged anywhere. He spent most of his free time reading books, watching movies, or playing video games alone in his apartment. One day, Pedro's friend, Lucas, invited him to a party. It was a small gathering of friends from college, and Pedro reluctantly agreed to go. He wasn't really in the mood for socializing, but he didn't want to disappoint Lucas. At the party, Pedro felt out of place. He didn't know most of the people there, and the music was too loud for his taste. He was about to leave when he saw her. Anna was sitting on a couch, sipping a drink, and looking at him with a smile. She was stunning. Her long brown hair was tied in a messy bun, and her green eyes sparkled in the dim light. Pedro felt a strange sensation in his chest, something he had never experienced before. He walked towards her, feeling nervous but excited. "Hi," he said, trying to sound casual. "I'm Pedro." "I know," Anna replied, still smiling. "I'm Anna. Lucas told me about you." Pedro felt a bit embarrassed. He didn't know Lucas had talked about him to Anna. He sat down next to her, and they started talking. At first, they exchanged the usual small talk, but soon they found out they had a lot in common. They both loved indie movies, jazz music, and hiking. They laughed at the same jokes and shared the same values. Pedro couldn't believe how easy it was to talk to Anna, how comfortable he felt around her. As the night went on, Pedro and Anna moved to a quieter corner of the room, away from the noisy crowd. They sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and kept talking. Pedro felt a sense of intimacy growing between them, a connection that he had never felt with anyone else. He looked at Anna, and she looked back at him. They both knew what was happening. "Can I kiss you?" Pedro asked, not wanting to ruin the moment, but also not wanting to miss the chance. "Yes, please," Anna replied, smiling again. Pedro leaned in, and their lips met. It was a soft, gentle kiss, full of tenderness and longing. Pedro felt like he was finally home, like he had found the missing piece of his life. He wrapped his arms around Anna, and she hugged him back, as if they were meant to be together. From that moment on, Pedro and Anna were inseparable. They spent every day together, exploring the city, trying new restaurants, and discovering new places. They went on hikes, picnics, and road trips. They talked about everything, from their dreams and fears to their favorite books and movies. They fell in love deeply and completely, without any reservations or doubts. Pedro couldn't believe how lucky he was to have found Anna. He had never been in love before, and now he knew what he had been missing all along. He felt alive, inspired, and grateful. He knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Anna, and he hoped she felt the same way. Pedro and Anna's love continued to blossom as they spent more time together. They traveled to different parts of the world, experienced new cultures, and created unforgettable memories. They talked about getting married and starting a family, and Pedro knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. One day, when they were on a romantic getaway in a beach resort, Pedro decided it was time to propose. He had planned the whole thing carefully, with a ring, a candlelit dinner, and a heartfelt speech. "Anna, my love," he said, looking deep into her eyes. "I can't imagine my life without you. You bring joy, laughter, and meaning to my days. You inspire me to be a better person, and you make me believe in the power of love. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Anna's eyes filled with tears of happiness, and she nodded eagerly. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes," she said, hugging Pedro tightly. They celebrated their engagement with champagne, music, and dancing. Pedro felt like he was on top of the world, like everything was finally falling into place. He couldn't wait to start planning the wedding and the rest of their lives together. But as the months went by, Pedro noticed that something was different about Anna. She seemed distant, preoccupied, and irritable. She didn't want to talk about their future plans, and she avoided making any commitments. Pedro tried to ask her what was wrong, but she always brushed him off, saying that she was just stressed from work. Pedro didn't want to believe that anything was wrong. He thought that maybe Anna was just going through a rough patch and that they could work through it together. But as their wedding day approached, Pedro couldn't ignore the signs anymore. On the day of the wedding rehearsal, Anna didn't show up. Pedro tried to call her, but her phone was off. He went to her apartment, but she wasn't there. He started to panic, wondering what had happened to her. He called her friends and family, but no one had seen her. Finally, he received a text message from Anna. It was short and to the point. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." Pedro felt like his world had crumbled. He couldn't understand how someone he loved so deeply could just walk away like that. He didn't know what had gone wrong, what he could have done differently, or how to move on. He tried to reach out to Anna, but she didn't respond to his messages or calls. He felt like he had lost not only the love of his life, but also his best friend, his confidant, and his soulmate. He felt empty, broken, and alone. For weeks after Anna left him, Pedro was in a state of shock and disbelief. He couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, and he couldn't concentrate on anything else. He kept replaying their last moments together in his mind, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. He couldn't find any answers. One day, Pedro decided that he needed to get away from everything and clear his head. He booked a solo trip to a remote cabin in the mountains, where he could be alone with his thoughts and nature. As he hiked up the trail to the cabin, Pedro realized that he had been so focused on his own pain and loss that he had forgotten about the beauty and wonder of the world around him. He saw the sunlight streaming through the trees, the birds singing in harmony, and the wildflowers blooming in abundance. He felt a sense of peace and awe that he hadn't felt in a long time. When he reached the cabin, he sat down on the porch and looked out at the breathtaking view of the valley below. He took a deep breath and let out a long sigh. He knew that he couldn't change the past or control the future, but he could choose how to respond to his present moment. He decided that he would use this time to reflect on his life, his values, and his dreams. He would let go of the pain and the anger, and he would embrace the lessons and the blessings. He would start anew. As Pedro sat there, lost in thought, he suddenly heard a rustling sound behind him. He turned around and saw Anna standing there, looking at him with tears in her eyes. "Pedro, I'm so sorry," she said, coming closer. "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left you like that. I was scared and confused, and I didn't know what to do. But I realize now that I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you forgive me?" Pedro felt a surge of emotions wash over him. He didn't know whether to feel angry, relieved, or happy. He stood up and looked at Anna, trying to read her face. "Anna, I don't know what to say," he said, hesitantly. "You hurt me deeply when you left. I felt like my whole world had collapsed. But I also know that love is not always easy, and that forgiveness is a powerful force. I need some time to think about this, and to see if we can rebuild what we had. But I'm willing to try." Anna nodded, and they hugged each other tightly. They spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and sharing their hopes and fears. They watched the sunset together, and they felt like they had been given a second chance. As they went to bed that night, Pedro realized that life was full of surprises, both good and bad. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that he was grateful for this moment, this love, and this opportunity to start anew. He closed his eyes, feeling at peace. Thank you for listening to this bedtime story, and remember, if you struggle with falling or staying asleep at night, click on the first link in the description for the ultimate solution to your problem. Now, choose one of these two videos and continue on our journey in the world of bedtime stories.